So, metal for knife making, I guess, can be very roughly described as three varieties. First type of variety is the weird stuff like gold, silver, copper, brass, next stone, titanium. These things don't particularly make good stuff, good material for knife making, partly because they're extremely expensive and partly because they don't really have what it takes to hold an edge. They're not particularly hard. Next you've got stainless and non-stainless essentially. Both of them are essentially the same things. They are mostly iron and carbon, and then to be a stainless steel it has at least 14% chromium, can have more, and then it's the non-stainless, which is carbon, iron, and then other things added, but those other things added often include chromium, but it has to be less than 14%, which makes it stainless. The advantage of stainless, of course, is that it is stainless, so it won't rust or corrode or stain as easily as something that is non-stainless or stainable and non-stainless. The problem with stainless is that, first of all, stainless, not stain-proof, will still corrode, just slowly. Second, it makes the metal more brittle, harder to sharpen, more prone to breakage. Now, a non-stainless type of steel, which is often called carbon steel, but that's wrong because carbon and stainless, well, steels both have carbon in them, but the non-stainless type steels, the carbon steel if you like, tends to be a bit softer, easier to sharpen, and it will tend to bend or roll rather than chip or break. The disadvantage, of course, is that it stains and rusts easily. Now, out of the carbon-based steels, there's two main sorts. There's standard steel, which is often used for structures or building or things like that, and there's tool steel. The only real difference, they both start the same. Tool steel has got bits added to it, which tends to make it a bit harder wearing. I mean, tool steel is designed for making either tools out of or for cutting up other things to make tools, so it's going to have higher impact, higher wear resistance. My favourite steel is 01 tool steel. This is mostly iron, it's got carbon, manganese, tungsten, which adds toughness, a little bit of chromium, only 0.4 to 0.6, not your 14, and some vanadium, generally. It may have a little bit of silicon, a little bit of other bits and pieces, but generally speaking, this is what it contains. Now, it can be heated to different temperatures to get different results, can be made harder or softer. Generally speaking, it takes a very good edge. It has very fine carbides, which means that the edge is even inside it. It can be shaped fairly easily. It can be tempered very well. We understand a lot about how to temper it, and it's fairly straightforward to do so. The price isn't ridiculous, and it'll roll or bend rather than chip or break. Field sharpenable, very good, very nice steel. It does rust though, rusts very easily, so you need to deal with that. I deal with it by keeping it clean, or keeping it oiled, or I let it become stained, but I control the staining so that it takes on a patina, which makes the steel go dark rather than shiny. But that prevents it from further staining. Now, to make a knife, I have wooden templates I use. I lay my template on the piece of steel, get it at the point where I want it to be, and then mark it out. There's other ways of doing it. Some people use layout dye. I've tried that. I just make a great big sticky blue mess when I use that stuff. Whereas if I do this, it's easy to clean up. And it seems to work for me. So, one piece of steel, or one tool steel, which is 500 mils long, will make me 2 of my GBK recurves. So, mark them out. Cut them out and then shape them up. Cutting's pretty rough. The other problem is that because the pen is quite thick, you've got to sort of cut under the mark and then you're losing your pattern. So it takes a bit of practice, but it works for me. Tool steel, good stuff. So after I've traced it, I chop it really roughly with an angle grinder. It looks pretty ugly, I've got to admit. Then I rough it out a little bit more with the angle grinder. That one's had some work done on it. After that, I'll jump onto the sander and I'll take the worst of the knocks off it. Again, these ones are just rough, there's a lot more metal to remove, but they start to take a much more elegant shape. So at the end of the sanding, the end of the grinding, we're left with 4 rough knife blanks. There's a lot more work to be done, but they're roughly the same. Completely different because they're all handmade, but roughly the same. Now what we need to do is put them in the vise and use a manual file on them just to tidy them up a little bit more. Get rid of some of the trickier stuff that I have trouble with the belt grinder with. Then we will look at getting some holes drilled and some bevels put on them.